Good evening, and we're now live. So welcome to our Monday, March 10th, 2025 Committee of Adjustment meeting. Can I get a call to order if mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang, that we call the meeting open at 6:03. All those in favor? Carried. Confirmation of agenda. At this point, we did adjust the minutes, the previous ones, but we'll go through that the next one. So are there any errors or omissions to the agenda?
No, Chair.
Okay. Mover and a seconder for the agenda. Moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang, that we confirm the agenda as presented. All in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, are there any? Seeing none, we'll move to approval of previous minutes for the February 24th, 2025 meeting. They were adjusted online before this meeting, but there was just a date, a clerical error, so we've made that amendment. So we'll move to accept those as amended. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. All those in favor? Carried. Now getting to new business and reports. AO5 2025, Somerset Acres Limited, Menard Robertson Custom Homes and Renovations Incorporated. And in all these cases, I do, if you hear me interrupt procedurally, sometimes we have to stay on task for what this meeting is about. So I'm not trying to be mean or dismissive, but I might call to order and bring us back to the point. So I'll move to Mr. Irwin.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with some required wording under the Planning Act. This is a hearing under Section 45 of the Ontario Planning Act, and that any person may attend this hearing and or make written or verbal representation either in support of or in opposition to the proposed variance. If a person, the applicant or public body, does not make oral or written submissions at this hearing or before the minor variance is decided upon, their comments will not be considered by the Committee of Adjustment. Only the applicant, the minister, or specified persons or public bodies with an interest in the matter may appeal the decision of the minor variance to the Committee of Adjustment to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the decision. Please note that the committee members have reviewed the applications along with any written submissions received in support or in opposition prior to this hearing. And in addition, we'll hear today oral submissions from any interested parties. For AO5 2025, the subject property is legally described as part of Lot 6, Concession 1 Front in the geographic township of Charlottenburg, now in the township of South Glengarry in the county of Glengarry, and is located at 19564 County Road 2. And the specific building is also known as 7 Somerset Acres Road, as the subject property is about 32.39 acres in area and contains multiple dwellings under one corporate ownership. This would be the entirety of the property there, with the subject dwelling down closer on the southeast end. The applicant's proposing to construct an addition onto the existing single detached dwelling that encroaches into the required 30-meter setback from the adjacent watercourse/fish habitat and provincially significant wetlands that are located in the St. Lawrence River. The following relief from zoning bylaw 3809 is requested to reduce the required setback from the top of the bank of the watercourse from 30 meters to 15 meters, and to reduce the required setback from a PSW zone from 30 meters to 15 meters. So here is a zoomed out version of the entire site plan provided, with the existing footprint in green and the proposed footprint being added in red. The left side of the drawing would be the south side where the water is. Just a slightly zoomed in version here, showing the addition highlighted here, as well as the existing footprint of the building here. And just some site photos taken from when the public notice sign was put up on the property. This would be walking around the building on the west side down to the water. And then this is just showing the shoreline is a hard line, like we call it a reinforced shoreline, basically. And then this was taken up at the top where the entrance to Somerset Acres Road is, just when the public notice sign was put up, off of County Road 2. The property is designated rural district in the county official plan and zone limited service residential and floodplain holding in the township zoning bylaw. And in the opinion of planning staff, the application does conform to the general intent of both the official plan and the zoning bylaw. And here's the zoning map showing that limited service residential zoning with some rural to the east and open space being a campground to the west, with the water to the south and rural to the north. You can also see in green down here the provincially significant wetlands kind of faintly in the water. The application was circulated to all abutting property owners within 60 meters, and applicable municipal staff. We've not received any written or verbal comments to date. And the application was also circulated to the RSCA, who provided comments saying that they do not object to the minor variance, just requesting that if they have not already paid, that the owner applicant pay any invoice fees by the RSCA, and that any necessary permits be obtained before work begins. And the minor variance is being recommended to be approved by our planner, Joanne Haley, and I will pass back to you, Chair, for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions at this point from the committee? Councillor Jaworski?
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. I think this is a question for Ms. Haley or Mr. Irwin. In the photographs, it appears that, and also in the sketch, there's a gazebo, and it looks like there's some sort of porch there already that appeared to go out beyond what's being proposed. So I'm just curious as to why they need to ask for a minor variance in this case.
The gazebo wasn't a recognized footprint, as no evidence was provided that it was built with any permits, and it is just resting on grass, so it wasn't recognized as part of the existing dwelling footprint, and was seen as more not necessarily a permitted structure.
Thank you. All right, do the applicants have anything they'd like to add at this present time? Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak to the matter? All right, Deputy Mayor Lang?
If there's nobody else, I'll move to pass.
Okay, we have a mover. Do we have a seconder? Okay, we'll go Councillor McDonnell. So moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor McDonnell that we approve this as presented. There are some caveats, Mr. Irwin.
So your minor variance has been approved. There is a 20-day appeal period from the date of this decision. Once that appeal period ends, we can move forward with any building permit reviews to take and get those issued, assuming everything else is good to go. Perfect.
Thank you very much. So next, moving on to AO6 2025 2595489 Ontario Inc. Bruining D2K Design. Mr. Irwin.
Thank you, Chair. The subject property for this file is legally described as part of lots 2 and 3 in Plan 26 in the geographic village of Lancaster, now in the township of South Glengarry, the county of Glengarry, located at 8 South Terrace Street, and is approximately 0.24 acres in area. And here is the subject property where the laneway that will be discussed in this presentation is proposed. The applicant is proposing to construct a sixplex on an abutting property to the west, being this shape, irregular shaped lot on the west, and is seeking a reduction in the required width of the laneway to access their parking area for the proposed sixplex. A 6-meter laneway is required by section 4.11 subsection 4 of zoning bylaw 3809 to accommodate two-way traffic to and from a parking area for more than 4 vehicles. And the following relief is requested to reduce that required 6-meter laneway down to 3 meters. Here is the proposed site plan with a zoomed in version here, showing South Terrace on the north end here, with a right-of-way where that black line was in the drawing, traveling down to the parking area out back. The right-of-way is approximately, it's in the 5+ meter range, but given that they're not going to pave the entire thing, or their laneway for access to parking isn't going to be the entire thing, they requested to go down to 3 meters. And here are some site photos taken from when the public notice sign was put up. This would be the far, this side right here, the far east property line. Moving to the west. And this would be the lot where the sixplex is being proposed. The area subject to the proposed variance is designated commercial district and falls within the boundaries of the urban settlement area of Lancaster in the county official plan, and is zoned general commercial in the township zoning bylaw. And in the opinion of the general manager of planning, building and enforcement, this application does conform to the general intent of both the official plan and zoning bylaw. And just the zoning map here showing the proposed lot where the sixplex is being in residential zoning adjacent to that general commercial zoning as discussed. The application was circulated to all abutting property owners within 60 meters and applicable municipal staff. One verbal comment was provided by Karen Williams expressing concern for the impact of their property at 184 Military Road of using the right-of-way as a laneway. I have not received any written comments to date. And the application was also circulated to MTO, who have provided comments confirming that they have no concern with the proposed variance and just request that a copy of the decision be sent to them, and that future developments may be subject to permits from their office. The minor variance is also being recommended to be approved by our planner, Joanne Haley, and I'll pass back to you, Chair, again for any comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Irwin. Are there any questions from the committee at present? Counselor Jaworski?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald, this is a question for staff. Like, the irregular shape and the fact that there's like a box in the middle, that's not a structure, right? It's just, if you could just elaborate on that for me, please?
Yeah, no problem. The property lines would roughly follow, of the subject property where the sixplex is proposed, would follow through kind of around the outside of that, not apart on the drawing. And the other property line would be somewhere around down here. It's just not featured on this plan. And then this would be a right-of-way on the abutting property to the east, used to access the parking out back.
Yeah, that's a good question, just to follow up on that one. So the right-of-way is owned by property 186 or 184, military. And then that box, that little box is also owned then by 186 or 184 military, the corner lot?
I believe that is the case, yes.
Okay.
But there is no structure on any of it. It is all just open parking lot as far as I'm aware.
Did that satisfy your curiosity? Because I think, remember this one when it was Berrigan's and it was in township ownership for a moment too.
No, thank you for clarifying, because I was trying to understand what you were saying there about the ownership and how that worked. And does this, using this as a right-of-way, I mean, I'm assuming because staff is recommending it, they don't see an issue, but if they could just elaborate on how they don't see an impact on using this as a laneway? Or how it might impact that other funny little box, or does it? I don't know.
So that would in part be for the committee to decide based on the four tests for minor variance. The right-of-way is, as far as I'm aware, is something that both property owners have access to in terms of whether that's desirable for the use of the land, if the impact will be minor in nature, and meets the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, that would be for the committee to make the final decision upon. It is staff's recommendation that it is consistent with those four tests, and
Thank you.
All right, does the applicant have anything they would like to add at present? We can come back to you if there's a question. Are there any comments from interested audience members? Yes, please. I guess we don't have our thing there, so if you don't mind sitting beside. Oh, there's a mic there, perfect. Is there? So just because we do go online, press the gray button that will light red, and just speak into the mic so people can hear you publicly.
Okay, hi, Cameron Williams, the owner of 184 Military Road. That picture is incorrect. Joanna was saying that because of lines and they're not consistent with other systems of yours. That black line's totally on my property, where the plan that I received in the mail here. So part 2 is actually part of their property. Part 3 and not a part on the plan is part of my property. So the easement or right-of-way just goes through the notch, what you referred to as a square box. So on their plan, there's a square box that's basically, I have an island of land that's being surrounded now by an easement and a private property. So again, part 2 is totally on their property all the way to South Terrace. Part 3 goes through my property, which is an easement. It is definitely not clear that it can be used for a permanent driveway with full and only access to these dwellings. I'm not convinced that 5 meters at a completely 90-degree corner can take a larger vehicle, even an F-150 with a medium box on it. I'm not sure snow removal can be done either through that. I don't know where snow would even go. I already have a snow issue on my property. I also have a public parking issue as well on my property, that patrons from other businesses park there, which we don't mind. It hasn't been an issue for us, but I could see this becoming an issue by adding more traffic right against the property line.
All right, thank you. And I do remember at one point, perhaps 2017 to 18, there was a parking issue there.
Major parking issue.
Yeah, I think that was whenever it was under Mr. Bell's ownership at that time. Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you. So 5.46 meters, how many feet is that? Be like 17, 18 feet likely?
Yeah.
It's 18.
So 17 feet to 18 feet. I mean, it should be, as long as they're not trying to pass each other, that should be fine to get a vehicle in and out, I think.
It's also a completely blind corner if there's a building there,
If there's a building where?
where they propose to build one.
Oh, you mean coming around the end of
Yeah.
it?
You have two people head to head, they're going on my property, unless I construct a fence.
Yeah, and then that's why I guess we're discussing the desirous nature of it, because I think planning-wise, it fits the boxes, right? So this is
Yeah.
what we are discussing, so.
I'm personally not too concerned. I think it's a laneway. It's not like you're going around a corner on a road. I mean, people aren't usually trying to do 50 kilometers an hour on a laneway, but
But that box is private property, that's not a part of the plan. That has no easement whatsoever on it.
So just to be sure, and somebody might have this information, that box is attached to part 3, which is then attached to 184.
Right, it would look like a notch, like on your visual satellite plan, it's in theory a notch, but there's an easement that goes through a very bizarre part of it, which is my concern, is that it's gonna basically be driven over. And therefore I would lose the enjoyment of my property.
Okay.
And it's not clear either that the easement is set up for that type of action. This easement was set up like 200 years ago to be paved and used as a 10-car parking or more.
All
I'm
right.
not sure if that would be challenged.
Okay, no, so with that question, is that an answer that we can, is that, sorry, we're not, we have to rely on our planners for knowledge of that particular question? Go ahead, Ms.
Through-
Haley.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chair, I certainly respect the fact that this is something that's been established a long time ago. And even reading the legal documents that were provided to us, it wasn't really clear in terms of the definition of the easement, but it was clear to me that the owner of the proposed sixplex has the right to traverse your parcel of property. I had suggested to the owner at that time to have discussions with yourself to make sure that, you can come to some arrangement, because when we're presented a development application and we can see, based on the plan submitted, that the development can work, it can meet the components of the zoning bylaw with the exception of the 6-meter aisle width, I felt that is a situation between you and the developer to determine exactly how individuals are going to be accessing that easement to get in and out, because from what we can see on paper, it can work, which is why we're recommending it to be approved.
Well, I've tried to reach out to him multiple times, even through real estate agents, and he's not a contactable person, multiple times over multiple years.
I am sorry for that, and maybe that's something we can assist you with, because we are in touch with that developer, and the agent for the developer is here this evening. And I do apologize if this map is not perfect. As you know, we've got aerial views, overlaid parcels. Perhaps that black line should have been shifted a little bit more to the east, or to the west, excuse me, but we're here to talk about the subject area of that land and how that easement is going to work. So my apologies for this not being perfect or being confusing, and I appreciate you contacting our office as well in advance to obtain information from Mr. Irwin for that. Thank you.
And I'll just, okay, Councilor Jaworski?
Thank you. And of course, staff, if I am going outside the bounds of what we can ask at a minor variance, don't be shy to tell me so. So is that little island developable? And second of all, are there other, or maybe this is more a question for developers, like, are there other, is there a reason why other orientations were not considered? Or if there are other orientations? Or what, like, a drawback of another orientation would have been, I guess, is maybe more so what I want to ask.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to answer your first question, it's a small parcel of property. It's possible that maybe Mr. Williams could place a 10 by 10 shed or, some small accessory structure. In my opinion, the easement is not going to prevent him from accessing it. Yes, if someone happens to be driving by in that moment, it might be an inconvenience, but you could have something small in there, or you could even use it for parking in there. I don't see the easement preventing you from using it. In terms of your second question, I apologize, can you just remind me? Oh, okay. So you mean what's being proposed on the abutting property for the sixplex? So perhaps that's better answered by the designer, Mr. Lalonde. I'm not sure how many variations they have gone through. If I remember correctly, it was 2021, we received and processed a zoning bylaw amendment application. At that time, there wasn't as much detail provided, but it was to reduce a setback because of the notch in that property. That notch in Mr. Williams' property certainly is unique and poses some configuration issues for the abutting property. But I think I'd like to turn that over to Mr. Lalonde to kind of talk about the design and the configuration, if that's okay.
Please go ahead, Mr. Lalonde.
Okay, thank you. Other configurations were considered. The owner wants to get as many units on that parcel as he can. That orientation of the building was the best orientation in order to accommodate the 6 units. Yes, I believe it was 2021 when the property was rezoned. You can see that the east unit, or east 2 units, are smaller, not quite as deep as the other 2. That was to meet a rear yard setback to that, I'll say, everyone called it an island, so I'll refer to it as an island, to accommodate that, and we did get a reduction at that time for rear yard setback, because you could see we couldn't keep the same depth of building and continue it across, because it would actually be right up to, it'd be right up to really the rear property line.
All right, thank you. I'll just give my thoughts on the matter because anybody who's listened to me over the last 2.5 years knows I enjoy seeing density in Lancaster. It is the spot we want, and at the same time, I sometimes loathe cars and our need to accommodate them all the time. Like this could be done with 3 parking spots. That'd be wonderful because it means everybody will be walking, but that's not the life we live in. To come back to a question though, we're confident that the easement can be used for traversing across that part 3 to get around. That's because I know Mr. Williams had mentioned he's not sure, but I think you had said yes, we are. Just to clarify on that matter.
I believe I'm of the opinion that the nature of the easement is beyond the scope of the Committee of Adjustments review, and the review would be better focused on the width of the proposed laneway being reduced from 6 to 3 meters.
Thank you for bringing us back to the topic at hand. I suppose, does Councillor McDonnell have anything to say from remotely? I haven't noticed anything, but I don't know if I was looking. Sorry if I've missed you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, not at this point. I do lose the benefit of any presentation that's on the screen, so do excuse my confused looks when I'm trying to make sense of the drawing for the plans. So. But as of now, no, as far as I understand, looking at my map, things, I understand it, but I would agree with Mr. Rubin. I think it is kind of outside the scope. So long as we're confident the easement is there and legally binding, I can't see a reason for the minor variance itself to be turned down.
Okay, thank you very much. So in that way, coming back to the question at hand, it is the driveway width from 6 meters to 3 meters is particularly what we're focusing on. Are there any comments on that one? Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think we kind of got a little bit sidetracked, I think, but because the question is, do we feel that the driveway can accommodate the vehicles at that reduced width? And I have no problem with it at all. And it sounds like there definitely is a right-of-way there, so we are not here to debate whether the right-of-way is there or not there, or shouldn't be there, or should be moved. I mean, if it was me, I would try to get a hold of the property owner and make a deal with them to give yourself some more on that side and let him move that way, but, I mean, that's between you two. But I think the driveway could accommodate vehicles, so I'd be happy to move it if nobody else has anything further to add, but I don't want to cut anybody off.
Is there anything further to add, sticking specifically to that 6 meters to 3 meters from either the applicant or the owner of the 18, or sorry, I was going to say 18.4, 184?
Well, I'm definitely not for it. I think it's gonna create an issue for myself. I'm gonna lose reasonable enjoyment of my property, 100% on that. I'd be willing to give away part two, because I have, the right to pass over part two as well. Just as he has to pass over part three. The buildings maybe should be shifted east and put the laneway on the west side of it. And when an easement was made 200 years ago, I don't think they were talking about modern vehicles, let alone snow removal equipment, fire trucks, ambulances, or just even a pickup truck, which was a lot of people drive them. I don't think you're navigating that corner with normal-sized vehicles.
All right, thank you. So I think like we can't discuss really the movement, but we do encourage a friendly discussion amongst neighbors, because that ultimately generally solves these issues. But we might not be there at this present time. So we have right now a mover to approve it. We can also, if the council wishes to defer it, I'd be looking for a second or two. Okay, Councillor McDonnell, are you seconding that? Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder to accept it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if there's. Oh, I
Nope.
just had a question.
Go ahead, Councillor McDonnell.
I don't know if there's a way of putting a condition on. I don't know if there's a way of putting a condition on that, obviously the municipality is able to get in contact with this property owner. If the neighbor is actually having that much problem or that many troubles trying to get in touch with the neighbor, maybe, I don't know if there's a condition we can put that, a meeting has to be had at the municipality between the two neighbors, ahead of, some kind of, ahead of the, application being approved. I'm not necessarily in favor of it. I'm proposing it just because, it does sound like the neighboring property owner has had quite a bit of difficulty getting in touch with this, applicant. Obviously they're answering us, but they need us, in a sense for this project. So I don't know, I'm looking in essence to, Miss Haley. I haven't seen any, I can't see you, so I have no idea if we even have that power, so.
Ms. Haley, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are not able to put that condition on. And the reason is because the committee needs to make a decision based on the 4 tests for the minor variance, not about really negotiating between two neighbors respectfully. So what you're looking at this evening for your 4 test is, does it meet the general intent of the official plan, general intent of the zoning bylaw? And basically, is it desirous? And maybe that's what it'll come down to for your discussions. The application is asking for a reduction in aisle width from 6 meters to 3. In fact, there's, I believe, 5.8 on the screen. If I can't read that really clearly from where I'm sitting. Thank you. So 5.4 meters. So there's actually more land than what they're asking for, except I even questioned why we were going to 3 meters, because there's more land available. But the reason I was received for the 3 meters was because that's the area that they plan to physically create. So they actually have a little bit more space to go beyond the 3 meters to widen that aisle width. And so then looking at it, we have to make the decision that, do you feel, is this minor in nature, this reduction? Is it minor enough to go from 6 meters to 5.4 meters, because that's what our bylaw would require, regardless of whether there's an easement or not? This land could have been entirely owned by the applicant, but still not able to meet the aisle widths. And then that's basically what you're deciding this evening, is that, is it acceptable? So thinking you're going to have 10 parking spaces at the back of this, and yes, there's 10 cars that will be moving in and out of this property for people who will be living there. Can they actually move in and out of that area safely and get in and out of that area? And that's what we have to consider. Thank you.
Mr. Lalonde?
Thank you. If I can speak just to maybe a little bit of why the 3 meters. The 3 meters is the minimum aisle width for one-way traffic. Obviously, because of the width of the easement, we can't accommodate the 6 meters for two-way traffic. It's a residential development, not a store where you'd expect to have simultaneous two-way traffic. In this case, you know, people leaving for work in the morning probably leave generally at the same time. People come home generally the same time. So for the majority of the time, we kind of expect that people would be traveling in the same direction. It is residential. You know, to accommodate the 10 parking spaces at the back. Is it possible that someone might have to back up to let someone in or out? Yes. And again, the 3 meters, I don't recall exactly what the zoning bylaw requires, but from the edge of the asphalt to property lines, there is a minimum distance for greenery, grass. So I think it's a meter or something like that. Yeah, so we're trying to accommodate that as well.
Well, that would really be tight if you have 5 meters.
So if you could, yes, thank you.
You wouldn't be able to get any of that green space in there. They're also suggesting developing like my property with asphalt or some sort of other driveway infrastructure. I mean, you guys were worried about giving access on the front side, South Terrace, to have parking there. You didn't want to have traffic going out on South Terrace for some reason. Imagine somebody backing out on that.
Yeah, it's a fair comment. Deputy Mayor Lang?
I'm not trying to say that it's ideal, but I'm quite sure that it's wider than Tim Hortons drive-throughs, and I get through with my pickup. So I think it can be done. And there is a right-of-way, so a right-of-way means they have the right to use it. So I'm fine with it. I think it would be great if the neighbors worked something out together, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about whether I think we can get a vehicle in and out there and they can make this work. And I'm good with it.
So we did have, I believe Deputy Mayor Lang was available to move it, to accept it. Do we have a seconder? Okay, seconded by Councillor Jaworski. So then we have mover and a seconder. All those in favor of accepting it as presented? 1, 2, 3. Okay, it is carried. There's a caveat from Mr. Irwin.
Thank you. So your minor variance has been approved. There is an appeal period starting as of the date of this decision for 20 days. So we know appeals are received. We can move forward with any advance any building permit reviews for the zoning aspect at least, once that time period is up. Okay.
Mr. Williams, we can connect you with the property owner as well, or perhaps you can do that this evening with Mr. Lalonde. Thank
So the question was, just because for a public record, can he send his appeal to City Hall?
So the appeals are filed with the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the Planning Act has received changes within the past, I'd say, year or two, that neighbors can no longer appeal. It's only certain bodies that can appeal, like municipalities, RCA, CN.
All right, we have next on the agenda was next meeting to be determined, perhaps at next meeting. Mover and a seconder to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Jaworski, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang, that we adjourn at 6:36 p.m. All those in favor? Carried.